Hey everybody, my name is Nate Winters. I'm the Director of Sales and Certified Sommelier here at Troon Vineyard and Farm. And today I have with me...
Nate Wall, winemaker.
And Michael Wagner, assistant winemaker.
And today we're going to talk to you about kind of one of the wines that's been on the forefront of our minds recently, our 2024 vintage of the Druids White. There's about 6 grapes in here, and I think it'll be interesting to hear them talk about how even 5% of one grape added to an overall blend can really make a nice difference or change. And so Nate, maybe you want to start and give us your thoughts on the wine and where we're at.
Yeah, so first, I think it's very fitting that we're out here like in the vineyard to talk about this wine. Our Druids wines are meant to be reflections of our entire property and really to try to capture like the essence of what it is that to be Troon. And that is part of the reason why we have those 6 varieties in there. It is a blend of a lot of different grape varieties from kind of different parts of the property to really kind of come together in this beautiful harmonious whole. And just reflect what it is to be Troon. Those 6 grapes, like Winters was mentioning, it's 48% Grenache Blanc, 17% Beurre Blanc, 14% Roussanne, 11% Vermentino, 5% Claret Blanche, and 5% Picpoul Blanc. And what's fun is you've probably heard of 2 or 3 of those, maybe 4, but there's probably some unique grapes in there for you. We believe we could be the only ones in Oregon growing a couple of these grapes. Beurre Blanc, Claret Blanche, and Picpoul in particular are fairly rare just on the West Coast in general. Certainly may be not planted elsewhere in Oregon. Even Vermentino, which we've had now for a while, it's a mainstay of our program. That is also a slightly more rare grape when compared to Grenache Blanc and Roussanne, but all of those were selected because they fit with our location here, with our growing seasons so beautifully. They're harvested throughout kind of different parts of the growing season. It's one of the benefits of having these different grape varieties. They break bud differently, they ripen differently, and then we get to put them together in this blend to really try to capture what we want to show you from the 2024, in this case 2024 vintage.
Yeah, so what's really cool about the blending process for this is that all of these grapes are kept separate for pressing, fermentation, through malolactic. And so Nate and I get to kind of experience and learn each grape specifically, and then, fine tune what we want in the future based on that. But then also we get to blend them together vintage by vintage, and I think that for 2024 it was the first time we kind of elevated this wine, I would say, because we got to use 2 portions of this that were fermented and aged in concrete. So we have 2 egg-shaped vessels. One's an egg, one is an upside down egg, a dolium, and we fermented the Grenache Blanc in one and then Roussanne in the other. And so that just added a lot of extra textural elements because number one, it's in concrete, but then also it's kind of self-stirring throughout the process. So on those ones, when we're sampling them throughout their whole life before we blend them, they're a little bit cloudy because without adding any oxygen or a person stirring them, they're just kind of automatically doing that on their own. And so that adds a lot of lees. So we end up during the blending process, the physical blending process, I'll rack off those initial lees, then we let them settle a little bit more in the next tank and have a little more time on lees, and then rack a second time into the blend because we don't fine or filter anything. So we're getting the best texture and flavor, eventually adding it all together in our final blend. I don't even remember how many blending sessions we had for this one.
Yeah.
We had a fun time with it. Everything tastes so good, but it's hard fitting it all together in the best way possible because a lot of different options taste good, but this is what we felt was the best for 2024.
Yeah, and it is really great to be able to keep all of these different components separate throughout their life and throughout their fermentation and aging. It really gives us a better chance to truly start understanding these grapes. A couple of these grapes we've only been working with at Troon now for just one. Actually, this may have been the first year for a couple of these, 2 years for a couple of the other ones, the newer grapes. So it really helps us understand what that grape does here, like and like what it wants to do, helps us set it up for success. With our minimal intervention winemaking style, we do not do any modifications to the juice as it comes in. We don't adjust sugar or acidity or add enzymes or whatever. It's just straight crushed grape juice. And so really like learning what each grape wants to be, and like how best to set it up for success at the front end so that it kind of gets to this beautiful end point, to give us basically the best color palette available to put together this painting that is the Druids white. That's why it's great to be able to work with them separately, to see. In time, we may end up learning that like some of these might want to be co-fermented with one another. Co-fermentation, where we actually add, in this case with white wines, you're working with juice, not the grapes. So we press the grapes, we have the juice. We might end up mixing that juice together at the front and then having one or more varieties co-ferment together, which would still end up, we might blend in some of the others. But again, being able to deal with them independently, especially for now, and really learn like their character, that will help us make those decisions in the future. But I mean, for right now, like we've been saying, this wine is just a great, it's actually one of my favorite wines that we have right now. I mean, it's the richness that this wine has for just 12.3% alcohol, so it is light and rich at the same time. So it's like nimble, but like, just still fills your palate, and just has like so many layers of flavor, partly because there are so many layers of grapes in here, but just a really, both complex yet like simple at the same time, right? So yeah, it's really fun wine.
I like to mention that a lot of people, when even Troon in the past years ago, I think these kinds of wines of blends have kind of been the second choice for a lot of producers. They usually blend them together when they don't have a plan for the rest of them, or maybe it doesn't fit to blend these barrels together. Whereas this is very intentional for us, and I think all 6 of these grapes being put in for a reason rather than just throwing it in because we had no other outlet for it, I think is really fascinating on how it does give you a unique experience. Micah and Nate, both of you, but whoever wants to start first, what would you want to pair this with for food-wise, I think? Anything come to mind?
I was actually just thinking, a win for me as a winemaker, we've kind of talked about this, is like when a wine can be standalone amazing or paired with something. Because I feel like sometimes one or the other comes to mind immediately. Like when you try a wine, you're like, oh, this would be really great balanced out with this dish. But playing off of what Nate was saying, like the textural element to it, there's a lot of weight that's really nice. It's super balanced. I think given that summer is coming up, I mean, I could see for the non-vegetarian, sorry Nate, like the herbaceous quality in here could kind of be played up if you did like a roasted chicken with lemon and some sort of herbs. A lot of roasted vegetables would also be amazing. I don't know if anything comes to mind for you personally.
Anything for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, things
for your
like
fellow
this.
vegetarians out there?
Right. Well, vegetarian food is generally more difficult to pair with wine in general. Although, as a vegetarian winemaker, I do, like most Troon wines totally work with vegetarian cuisine. It's like the minimal intervention wines that are less extracted, brighter, lighter. Those always pair well with vegetarian cuisine. Specifically, we always try to not just have like a fruit bomb, like we have layers, and in those layers are some herbaceousness, a slight bitterness, like a positive bitterness to offset the fruitiness. So like we're looking for balance across that entire like range of kind of the flavor spectrum, with both from fruit to herbaceousness and everything in between. And that is what allows these wines to pair with vegetarian food. So even something like a fresh salad with like chopped strawberries in it, maybe some nuts. Like this would be great in that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Fresh salad is always great. I mean, we're surrounded by flowers, and then like just these delicate aromatics that I find the Applegate often expresses through the white wines.
Yeah.
Super pretty aromatics, and you can always complement or contrast in wine pairings. Is kind of how I go to them. And I was trying to think of the richest possible dish to serve with something like this, and maybe like some scallops or like a sauce or something. There's enough tension in here to maybe cut through the richness of a heavy sauce or of a fattier protein.
I've been making a lot of pasta sauces out of the various squash that we grew here. So you could, again, depending on like what you add to that, you can make it a little bit richer, but like a squash pasta sauce, or also I think a lot of cheeses, you were talking about the delicate elements of this. It's like if you're doing something where you're getting together in spring with friends and people are bringing a lot of like charcuterie, I think that also works well.
Yeah, charcuterie and friends. Again, this is our 2024 Druids White. Look forward to seeing this more on the shelves and being available. I think it's finally starting to round out after being in bottle for some time, and it's really, you know, jumping out of the glass. And just like the sunshine's coming out, white wine season is basically upon us. So I hope you can get your hands on this soon. And if you have any questions, you want to follow up, you know how to reach out to us via social media, or call the tasting room, email our tasting room. Any way that you can submit a question, we're always happy to have them. Thanks for your guys' time, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.